Insight. The first ever series to analyze the unexplored aspects and issues of Carnatic music. Dear Rasikas, welcome to the 24th episode of our Insight series. Earlier in our episodes, we had discussed about the Varnam, its characteristics. We had also discussed about the Tana Varnam and what are its salient features. Well, there is another kind of a Varnam called the Padhavarnam, and today we'll be talking about that only. Just a recap about the Tana Varnam, that this compositional form got its name because of the fact that it has got a Tanam-like structure embedded in it, in the melodic structure I mean. Like we did in before also, you may remember, Ninnu koriyona nore. You may go back to our previous episodes to see the structure of this Tana Varnam. And as I also said that in the Tana Varnam is a very important part of the Abhyasa Ganam, that is for the student to practice in terms of gaining control over voice, having good voice facility, and also about having Swaragyanam, that is a deeper sense of understanding of the Swaras. Now, we also mentioned that the Tana Varnam is the opening piece when it comes to be a part of the Kacheri. The Padhavarnam is quite different in the sense that it forms a very, very important part of the dance genre. That is, in a dance recital, the Padhavarnam occupies the central piece. And in an Arangetram also we see that it is like an acid test to perform the Padhavarnam, and once the Varnam is done, the Guru automatically seems kind of relieved, because when the student has performed the Padhavarnam well, it means that he has really qualified herself to become the next level, that is to qualify themselves to become more accomplished in the dance domain. So that way the Padhavarnam is very, very challenging, where you see that the dancer has to display various rhythmic patterns, the Nritta and the Bhavam, that is Abhinaya part. So it is a beautiful piece where various facets of the dance and the dancer come to the fore. And in terms of the structure, if we see, structurally both are similar. The Tana Varnam and the Padhavarnam, in terms of the structure, they are very, very similar in the sense that both have a Pallavi, Anupallavi, then the Muktaiswaram, that is the Purvanga portion. Then in the Uttaranga portion, we have the Charanam and the Charanam Swaras. So where is the difference? The difference lies in the fact that each of the Swara portion that is there, for that in the Padhavarnam, you see that there is a corresponding Sahitya. And that is why you see that it lends itself much more beautifully in the dance, as I was saying again before. If you look at the various Padhavarnams, some of the most popular ones you would see are those of Papanasam Sivan. You would have seen that composed, like for example the Varnam in Nattukurinji Swami Nanundan, or you see that Swami Manamirangi in Sri Ranjani, or you see Ni Inda Mayam in Dhanyashi. These are all some of the popular Varnams which are featured regularly in a dance concert. And we also see that another difference I would like to share here is that in Tana Varnam it is more structured in the sense that we don't improvise on any of the lines. It's a much more tightly packed and much more, I would say, very, very structured form that we follow the notation and we sing it. Whereas in a Padhavarnam you see that the same line is repeated again and again in different melodic ways by the vocalist to give room and space for the dancer to explore more on the expression part of it actually. We will look into one Varnam now, the Padhavarnam of Papanasam Sivan, to see how Padhavarnam actually looks like. Again, I would also like to share that in terms of the Kala Pramana, while Tana Varnam could be more in the Madhyama Kala, Padhavarnam has got a much more slower kind of a Kala Pramana. That is the usual pattern in which it is rendered. Swami நானுந்தன் அடிமை என்று உலகமெல்லாம் அறியுமே தாமதம் செய்யாது வந்தருள் மாதோர் பங்க பூதே சனமாப்ரித பானமே என் ஜீவனமே என்று நம்பினேனே நடனமாடும் சேவடி தரிசனம் என்று கிடைக்கும் எனவே ஏங்கினே நேசா நித நிதமாக மகச நித தனி சமக மதனி சரிகம கமகச நிரிசனி சானி நீதத மகச ரேக மதனி சடடவியில் இளம் பிறை தெய்வகங்கையோமோர் அரபுமாட இளநகை தவழும் வேதழுடல் ததீம் என சீற்றபலம் தன்னில் ஆடும் சுவாமி. Here you saw that in the Muktai Swaram that we had, Sa Nida Nida Ma. For that you had a corresponding Sahityam. Jadadavigil and so on. Now in the Charanam also the same pattern is followed, where you have a Charanam line and then each of the Swara passages have a corresponding Sahityam. We'll just look into one or two of these Charana Swaras to illustrate what I wanted to tell you. Nataraja Deva Sachidananda Nataraja Deva Sachidananda Maga Sa ni re sa ni da ni sa da ni sa re ga na ta ra ja de va Sachidananda gaadum நின்னழகில் காதல் கொண்ட இவளை பன்னட்டர ஜய தேவா Sachidananda Mabaga Baga Sani Sasa Nidani Sari Gaga Madani Sani Da Baga Sani Sari Gana Tara Jaya Deva சச்சிதானந்த நந்தி பிருங்கி சிவகணம் முனிவர்களும் இந்திரன் முதல மர கோட்டிகள் பணியும் நடர ஜெயதேவா Sachidananda. Like this it keeps going on. Also you would have observed in a dance that this charanam line is sung a number of times by the vocalist, for giving that space for exploration by the dancer. So it becomes like some kind of impromptu sangati. It is not like a neraval, but neither is it a sangati in the typical sense of the term that it is structured, but the singer will try to improvise. For example, Natara Jayadeva Sachidayananda Natara Jayadeva Sachidayananda Natara Jayadeva Sachidananda Natara Jayadeva. This applies to the Pallavi, Anupallavi also, where the same line is sung again and again. Of course, if we keep singing it the same melodic pattern, it will seem boring also, and it may seem monotonous. So these kinds of improvisation are made by the vocalist to the Padhavarnam to give it this kind of a variety. And you also see that, as I said earlier, the Kala Pramana has to be very relaxed for giving that room for expression by the dancer. Here I would like to interestingly also point out to you that there have been some cases of how the Padhavarnam has been modified by musicians to make it into a Tana Varnam. We all very popularly hear the Natu Kurunji Varnam. Again, I am taking another Padhavarnam in Telugu. This was in Tamil. This we have heard performed very often in a kacheri, and there you see that it is performed as a Tana Varnam, in the sense that none of the swara passages have the sahityam attached to it. But if you look at the actual notation, you see that this is actually a Padhavarnam where there is corresponding sahitya to all the swara passages. And sometimes I have also seen that recently one of the greatest Varnam composers, Lalgudi Jayaraman sir, we see that the Charukeshi Varnam Innum in Manam Ariyadavar, that particular composition, in some of the YouTube recordings I also saw that this which is actually a Padhavarnam, some of them are also turning it into a Tana Varnam and singing, but that is not the correct method. The intention of the composer when he does a Padhavarnam, there is a purpose, and as singers or even as instrumentalists, we have to understand that purpose of what is the purpose of composing it as a Tana Varnam or Padhavarnam, and we have to retain it intact and perform. Before I move on, I would just like to now give you a comparative assessment of the Tana Varnam and Padhavarnam for a final understanding of the two. As I said earlier also, that both of them follow a similar structure of a Pallavi, Anupallavi, Muktaiswaram, followed by the Charanam and Charanam Swaras. And as for the Sahitya, we see that in a Tana Varnam, the Sahitya is of not much significance, in the sense that the vowels which go into it, like A, E, or all this A, E, I, O, U, the vowels are given a lot of space here, and they are used very predominantly, so that the point here is about exploring the ragam and giving voice, kind of the a kind of a movement for the voice. And so here the Sahitya, sometimes if you look at it, there is hardly any meaning also. But in Padhavarnam, basically you see that it's the Nayaka Nayaki Bhava that is portrayed through a Padhavarnam. Then we see that the pattern of that is the structure of the notes the progression in the charanam, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, we had discussed about what is the rule behind the way the swaras have to be structured in a charanam, and that is followed similarly both in Padhavarnam and Tana Varnam. There is no difference on that. And as I said earlier, in the Padhavarnam we also see that the Sahitya has got a different kind of a mixture in terms of the tempos here, and we see that while the Tana Varnam gives stress, a lot of stress to the Tatakaram, here again the Sahityam becomes very, very important. And the next one more aspect I would like to discuss with you about is the Ragamalika kind of a Varnam. This is again a very interesting form of Varnam, where you see that within the Varnam a number of ragas are incorporated. And this gives some kind of a, element of suspense, what is going to come next. And in this, of course, we have the popular Varnam, the Navaraga Malika Varnam, Valachi Vachi. We'll just run through it quickly to see how the ragams glide from one into the other. Valachi Vachi Yona Pai Chala Museya Mere Sami. That was Kedaram. Cheluvudaina Shri Venkatesha Kalasi That was Shankarabharanam. Dani sari ga ma da pa ba gari ni gari ni re ni da ni sari ga ma pa da ma gari sa dani sari ga ma pa da ni ba da ma pa da ni sa. That was Kalyani. Ni da pa ma gari ga da ma gari sa ni da pa sa ni ri sa gari pa ma da pa sa ni ri sa gari ga ma ri sa ni ri sa ri ni da pa ma gari sa sa ma gari ri sa ni Valachi. That was Begada. Now 4 ragas formed the Pallavi. Now the Charanam. Pada sarvaga Moolaganam ni Kambodi. Now pa ma gari gari sa pada sari ma pada sa Yadukula Kambodi. Pada pa ba gari ga da pa ba gari sa ni da pa da sa ri ga pa ba gari sa ri ga pa pa ba gari ga pa da sa ri ga pa da sa sa ri ga pa da sa ri ga pa ba gari ga pa da sa. Bilahari. Next step. Pa da ba gari ga da ba gari ga pa gari sa ri sa da sa ri ga pa da sa da ba gari sa ri ga pa da sa ri ga ri sa da pa da ba gari sa ri ga pa da sa. That was Mohanam. Pa pa ba ri ga gari sa ni sa gari sa ni pa ni sa re ma pa ba ri gari sa ni sa re ma pa sa re ma pa ni pa ba ri gari sa re ma pa ni sa re ni sa re ga gari sa ni ga ri ga sa ri sa re ni sa pa ni sa re ga gari sa ni re sa ni pa da ni pa ba ri gari sa ni pa ri sa ni pa ba ba. That was Sri Ragam. So the method, of course, here is the same, where after each of the Ragam change, we come back again to the Charanam Pada Saroja. So this is one of the examples of a Ragamalika Varnam. Then after that, we also have the different kinds of Varnam, like the Nakshatra Malika Varnam, that is, which is in 27 ragas. Then we also have Dinaraga Malika Varnam, denoting the 7 days of the week. Then we also see that our Swati Tirunal, he has composed a Ragamalika Padhavarnam. Very, very famous one, Sumasayaka in Karnataka Kapi, we see that. And in this, what happens is that the entire composition is in Karnataka Kapi. It's again in a very relaxed, beautiful gate that he has composed. And in the last Charanam, you see that in the last 4 avartas, we have the Ragams, Kalyani, Kamas, Vasanta and Mohana coming in, and then back to Karnataka Kapi. So this is another example. So coming to the Padhavarna composers, we saw that Papanasham Shivan is one of the important composers in the sense that his Padhavarnams are very predominantly also performed in the dance circuit. Then of course the Tanjavur quadret, Ponnaya, Chennaya, Vadivelu, Shivanandam, they are also very, very important. Then Swati Tirunal is composed. There are many more composers of Padhavarnam. Of course, in the near that we have seen, one of the greatest prolific composers, Sri Lalgudi Jayaraman, who has composed a number of beautiful Padhavarnams. And these have been very, very, in fact, it has been used a lot, I would say, by many dancers, and they are the ones which give the room or a lot of facility for the expression by the dancers. So finally, I would like to conclude here by saying that Tana Varnams are predominantly a part of the Kacheri genre, and they give some kind of a bright start to the concert, of course, and mostly, as the name indicates, Tana Varnam should be rendered in the medium tempo, but then of course in the Kacheri we also see that it is rendered in the Keel Kalam and then Mel Kalam, that is double tempo after that, to give some kind of a brightness to the concert. Padhavarnam, on the other hand, is a compositional form which is used much in the dance field because of the fact that the Swaram, Sahityam, both form a part of it, and they give a lot of space for Nritta, Abhinaya, that is a lot of space for rhythmical intricacies to be explored as well as the Bhava aspect. With this, we come to the conclusion of this episode on Padhavarnam, and in the next episode we will be going on to the other compositional forms which are seen in the Kacheri format. And if you have any queries or if you have any feedback to share with us, do email or WhatsApp to us. Thank you once again, and I hope that you found this particular episode interesting and informative. Namaskaram.